Justin, new data painting an increasingly worrisome picture for the U.S. jobs market. For the first time in years, job seekers are outnumbering job openings. CNN's Vanessa Yurkevich is following this story for us. What are you seeing here, Vanessa?
Yeah, this is a JOLTS report that we get every single month, and it precedes oftentimes the jobs report that we'll get later in the week. But this JOLTS report essentially revealed that there are fewer jobs available than those that are looking for those jobs. So in the month of July, it reveals that there are 7.18 million jobs open, and there are 7.2 million people who are unemployed looking for a job, so a little less than one job per person. And what this really signals is that there is starting to be a softening in the labor market, which very much starts to back up what we saw in July's jobs report, which showed a weakening of hiring, just 73,000 jobs added in the month of July, which led to President Donald Trump firing the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
So the winningest president continues his streak of win after win after win with the announcement today that there's no jobs anymore, folks. The U.S. now has more unemployed people than job openings. The hiring rate is down to 3.3%, which is the lowest number it's been in more than a decade. And last month, the surplus of job openings to unemployed job seekers closed for the first time in over 4 years. And there was also another analysis that showed that U.S. companies announced less than 1,500 new jobs in August, which is the lowest number it's been since August 2009. Yes, and for anyone who was around in 2009, the economy was not great at that time. But again, things are even worse this time around because it's not just the fact that there are no more jobs, it's also the fact that there are no jobs while your costs are increasing. Let's take a look at what's going on with utility costs.
New this morning, President Trump promised to cut electricity prices in half within 12 months of getting back in office. New data, though, is showing that prices are actually surging. Matt Egan joining us now with all of the details. A lot of people are feeling this already. Why? What's going on?
Well, Kate, yeah, it's getting increasingly expensive just to keep the lights on. Looking at electricity prices over the last year, up 5.5%. That's basically double the overall inflation rate. And as you mentioned, this is the exact opposite of what the president had argued would happen if he got elected, right? He actually said he thought that energy and electricity prices would get cut at least in half within 12 to 18 months.
Yep, electricity prices are double the inflation rate. The lowering costs president, the guy who was elected because inflation is hurting your wallet, is literally doing the exact opposite of what he said he would do. This is not just a fire that occurred out of nowhere that he inherited. This is a fire that he's pouring gasoline on. And it's all of his policies, mostly the tariffs, which are driving up costs for everybody, but also the shredding of the federal workforce, kicking millions of people off their health care with his cuts to Medicaid, his cuts to food assistance. Tourism is also collapsing because nobody wants to come here anymore. On the issue of utility costs, he's cutting investments in energy. And that's what people need to understand. It's not just that Trump's economic agenda is so toxic and horrible, which it is, and it is destroying our economy, but it's also the rest of the pieces of his agenda which are destroying this economy. From his one big bullshit bill alone, we're probably going to lose 1.2 million jobs. Because newsflash, when the money dries up for things like Medicaid, that means hospitals can't operate, which means hospitals close. And then when hospitals close, people lose their jobs. So to be clear, it's not just that we're trading off healthcare for poor people for tax cuts for billionaires. We're also trading off jobs for nurses for tax cuts for billionaires. And again, on the other side of the coin, with these tariffs, the cost of everyday goods is just going up and up. And that's how we're ending up in this period of stagflation coming up, where costs are just going to continue to soar. Meanwhile, jobs are going to continue to go down. And all Donald Trump has to say on the matter is his usual word salad because his brain is melting.
So if you go back to 1913 is when they ended tariffs. We were the richest ever from 1850. It was all tariffs. We didn't have income taxes. From 1850 to 1913. In the 1887s, about 1887, they had the Great National Tariff Act. And it was a group of people that got together because our country was so rich, they didn't know what to do with the money. We had so much money, they didn't know what to do. It was a group of very prominent people that were set up to hand out money to everybody because we were the richest we ever were. Proportionately, we were in 1887, around that time, even in 1913. We ended them in 1913 How did that work out? And then we went to the income tax system, and then we had the Depression. And by the way, a lot of people try and say that, oh, tariffs with the Depression. No, they ended in 1913.
Yes, thanks for that, Donnie. I will take that dementia word salad about tariffs in 1913. And I will go buy eggs with it. And by the way, it's not just us hack partisan Democrats saying this. Here's the CEO of McDonald's saying that what we're entering is essentially a two-tier economy, where the people at the top are doing relatively okay, but the bottom 80% of Americans are just getting completely wiped out.
And part of what we also saw was that, particularly with middle and lower income consumers, they're feeling under a lot of pressure right now. I think there's a lot of commentary about what's the state of the economy, how's it doing, and what we see is it's really kind of a two-tier economy. If you're upper income, earning over $100,000, things are good. Stock markets are near all-time highs. You're feeling, quite confident about things. You're seeing international travel. All those barometers of upper income consumers are doing quite well. What we see with middle and lower income consumers is actually a different story. It's that consumers under a lot of pressure. In our industry, traffic for lower income consumers is down double digits. And it's because people are either choosing to skip a meal. So we're seeing breakfast. People are actually skipping breakfast, or they're choosing to just eat at home. And so for our business, which has a significant group of consumers which are in that middle and lower income, we needed to step in with something like what we're doing here.
And my point in bringing this guy up is not because I believe that the CEO of McDonald's is an economic guru in any sense of the word, but it's just the point that when people don't have money to spend, that hurts businesses too. All the Republicans who were, apparently big free trade, big business people, now following Donald Trump off the cliff of tariffs and into the abyss of the government buying 10% of Intel and other American companies. It's not just a betrayal of the values they claim to hold, and it's not just a betrayal of working middle-class Americans. It's also a betrayal of their big business backers. Because at the end of the day, if people don't have $5 for a Happy Meal at McDonald's, that's probably a problem. Not just for the people who want to buy the Happy Meals, but for the people selling them as well. And again, it's not like people were doing great before this. I mean, here's a clip on the pessimism about our rigged economy that's been festering for decades.
They're still pessimistic. And let me start with a poll that you guys referred to last week, which prompted me to try to lay out for you what lies behind that poll. But this was a poll by the Wall Street Journal and NORC. People like me have a good chance of improving our standard of living. And you can see the percentage that agree with that statement, who think they have a good chance of improving their standard of living, has dropped all the way down here to 25%. You can see back here in 1987, it was up around 75%. It bounced around, it bounced around. It did start coming down after the financial crisis, no question about that. This break here was COVID when they didn't take the survey. But you can see that COVID really changed people's perceptions. And now you've got only 25% of the people who believe this. Another poll found that 70% of Americans believe that there was never an American dream and that they were ever unlikely to realize it. But why do people feel that way? There is some reality and facts behind this sentiment, and that's what I want to show you now. This is the growth in real personal income, meaning how much money did people make after you adjust for inflation, so everything puts on an apples-to-apples basis. If you go back to 1980, you can see that over this period of time, the average personal income grew by 1.3% a year. That may not sound like a lot, but that's after inflation, and when you compound it, it can be. And we had lots of ups and downs, as you can see in these light blue bars, but that's what we did. And then after the financial crisis, that dropped to 1.0%.
In 2008, for those
around that period of time,
yeah.
In 2008, exactly. And, again, that may not sound like a lot, but that's almost a 30% drop. But then look what happened after COVID. It dropped all the way to minus 0.2, meaning the average family after inflation was losing ground. Yes, a lot of that was around 2020 and COVID, but even post-COVID, you can see how small these blue bars are. It's barely growing at all.
Yeah, we've been in this death spiral for a while now. It's part of the reason why Donald Trump was elected. Again, people believed that he was a change maker. For whatever reason, they believed the vibes that he put out rather than the words that came out of his mouth. And people are starting to see that now. I mean, Trump is underwater 33 points on the cost of living. 33 points underwater. And I mean, it is genuinely impressive that you are able to get this many Americans to agree on something right now. But that's just how obvious it is. that his words have been so hollow on this issue, and that he does not care about how actual Americans are doing. Meanwhile, Laura Trump is out there telling you not to believe your own eyes at the grocery store.
Prices are coming down. It's not going to happen immediately, but people are actually feeling it out there. This is the thing they should have been paying attention to a year ago when the American people were saying, you know, inflation is really high. It's coming down with Donald Trump. We see the numbers all over the place.
Yeah, thanks for that, Laura. I will do absolutely nothing with that. This Trump strategy of just being like, oh, don't worry about it. Oh, we see numbers all the time. People are giving me the best numbers. That doesn't really work when you go to the grocery store and it's like $20 for a chicken breast. And again, what are Republicans in Congress doing during this entire thing? The Republicans who passed their tax cuts for the rich while just cutting off the American people at the knees once again. Well, they're out here talking about how great Donald Trump is doing and saying, hey, this guy should get a third term.
Versus President Trump, which is why I've nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize, which is why I think he should be eligible for a third term. He's truly the leader at the historic time in our nation and, quite frankly, in our world.
Again, Trump underwater 33 points on the cost of living, and his sycophants out here think that he deserves another 4 years for how great he is. Never mind the fact that he can't even answer a question coherently anymore, if he ever could in the first place. And, you know, like his hand is still bruised every time we see the guy, which is getting rarer and rarer. But hey, again, maybe that's why we're doing extrajudicial executions of drug traffickers in Venezuela. So that way you don't focus on the fact that you can't afford anything anymore, that you can't afford a home, that you can't afford to put your kids through school. Because we're murdering alleged drug traffickers in a country you'll never go to in your life with your tax dollars. And if you ask JD Just Dance Vance why we're having to do this, or like what the justification for this is, the justification is, fuck you, that's why. With this.
On the Venezuela vessel strike, what legal authority were you guys working under, and will there be an after report on the strike?
Well, I'm sure there's going to be an after report. I mean, the legal authority, and I want to talk about these kids, is that there are people who are bringing literal terrorists who are bringing deadly drugs into our country, and the President of the United States ran on a promise of stopping this poison from coming into our country.
Look, here's the reality of the situation. Over the last year, U.S. companies have poured over $1 trillion into stock buybacks, enriching investors at a record pace. Meanwhile, you see the McDonald's CEO out here talking about a two-tiered economy. A two-tiered economy that, of course, he's benefiting from, but that's besides the point. But I would argue what we're actually looking at is a three-tiered economy. Because it's not just the middle and working class versus the ultra-rich. It's the middle and the working class, the rich, and then Donald Trump. Because while your family hasn't been doing great, there's one family that's been doing exceptionally well in these last few months.
Turning to another huge scandal hitting the White House, the president is reaping dividends from crypto unlike anything we've ever seen. He's likely now pocketed more money from this side job while serving as president than from his many other businesses. The Fox News sister outlet, the Wall Street Journal, reporting the Trump family has pocketed about $5 billion. That's $5 billion through the launch of a virtual cryptocurrency, most of that occurring this year while Trump is president. It is likely the family's most valuable asset, exceeding their real estate. The entire project raises questions about conflicts of interest and secret lanes to influence a sitting president. It opens up a gusher of foreign money, and remarkably, it shows how Trump's business and personal standing is benefited by his political job.